Yes, we're up and about here at the Shelter FootyCast live from BackChat Studios. It's Derby week. It's Derby Thursday, actually. Good to be with you, Mark Reddings, Will Schofield, Skeeter. How are you?
I'm going okay, but most of our media colleagues are in Paris, just on the Champs-Élysées and having some croissants. We're in Perth, which doesn't have quite the same ring to it in the freezing middle of winter.
When are you heading over?
Not going over this time. I was there this time last year, but that of course was unofficial duties.
You went a year early.
I went a year early, which is the same as when I had my twins. I went a bit early, and that's probably wasn't expecting to have two at once. But anyway.
Very good. It is Derby week. We're excited. If you don't have your tickets for the BackChat 6PR Shelter FootyCast live Derby show from the Leederville Hotel, you're going to need to go and get them. There's 20 tickets left. If you're listening to this and you don't have it, there's 20 tickets left. BackChatStudios.com.au. They're $20 each. Come along. Dave Mundy will be there. I'll be there. Liam Duggan is confirmed, the captain of the West Coast Eagles.
Wow, and he's just signed a new deal with the club as well.
I did see that. So he'll be down telling us how much money he has. We're going to be talking about some West Coast contracts off the top of the show, Skeeter, but make sure you get down there. We've found an extra keg of the BackChat Ale, Skeeter.
So will it be the same sort of numbers as we had early this year when it was just chock-a-block?
So we had 200 down there when we couldn't believe your eyes that 200 people were in a venue to come and see you talk, which I was a bit surprised as well. We've extended it just by 30 or 40. So we've just gone over 200 and there's about 20. And
I just remember the ratio of blokes to women was about 97% blokes and 3 hardy souls.
So if you're a girl listening along.
Female, woman.
Can I not say girl?
Well, you can, but yeah, girls tend to imply that you're young.
Don't you come from the left on me, mate. Don't you woke me up. Seriously. If you are gender specific of any nature, come down to the BackChat Studios.com.au to get your tickets. If you want some beer, by the way, you can use Shelter FootyCast on shelterbrewing.com.au to get yourself some discounts. Skeeter, the Olympics are on, as you've said, but let's talk about footy off the top. Fair bit going on in the contract department. I know you've been on radio this morning reporting a few different permutations. A couple of players of interest over here in the West. Tom Barrass, Tim English, Liam Baker, Shea Bolton.
Yeah, I'm also Tom Barrass in recent times. Tom Morris out of Melbourne put this up last night on 9 with regards to Tom Barrass. Obviously, the Bulldogs have been talked about for a fair while, but now Hawthorn apparently have entered the race, and by all accounts, they've got enough in their salary cap to have a go at Josh Battle and Tom Barrass, which would give James Sicily almost like an armchair ride in defence if he's got those two blokes beside him. But anyway, Tom Barrass, he's contracted. That means very little in modern day footy.
He signed at the end of 2021 and he's contracted till the end of 2027.
Yeah, again, what does that actually? Apart from the fact that you're going to have to sort out a deal, if the club is determined, or he is determined to move, which he's stated quite clearly, and you know him far better than I, that he's more than happy to stay here. But why is his name still being linked with a move east?
Well, it's being linked because he's a good player, and West Coast don't have a lot of currency, do they? We know that. Elliot Yeo was a form of currency, but they've gone and signed him to a 2+1 deal as a 30-year-old midfielder or 31-year-old midfielder. That's what West Coast did, and that's how they prioritised their ducks over there at the West Coast Eagles. Tom Barrass has currency, and he's a good player. And these two sides, Hawthorn and Bulldogs, are crying out for a regular key position backman. Like, they are crying out for someone to step up and give them some stability behind the footy. The West Coast Eagles, I want to put to you, Skeeter, I don't understand. Yes, he's signed to a contract, but clearly his his value in the market has increased since he signed that deal. He won a best and fairest in 2022. Sydney have come knocking twice, and he's denied them twice. And not saying it's Tom Barrass's choice because he is signed to a contract. But if you're the West Coast Eagles, would you not seek to renegotiate his deal so he stops looking elsewhere? Wouldn't Tom Barrass be someone, if you're rebuilding the footy club, wouldn't he be someone that you'd want to build around?
Yeah, well, the counter-argument to that is, given where the Eagles are at and looking at what they have at their disposal, and it's all about getting really good draft selections, I would have thought, in part this year, to try and see how they're going to have a top 3 pick, and whether they split that, how they structure that remains to be seen, but they're going to have high-end draft selections. Will they prioritise having Tom as one of their leaders, one of the cause of their club going forward for the next maybe 2-3 years? Or will someone like Hawthorn come? They've said 5 years somewhere. Now, that's a pretty handy deal if he gets offered that, and that's on the table. I'm not sure that's the case, but what are you prioritising? Harry Edwards obviously is going to come through at some stage and become a backman of some repute, we hope.
Jeremy McGovern's not playing forever, I wouldn't have thought.
Exactly.
So if you go and trade Tom Barrass, right, after you've prioritised Elliot Yeo and signed in a midfielder who's been, as we know, injured and inconsistent and getting on the park, and you get rid of Tom Barrass for whatever you get, right?
Well,
it sounds to me that West Coast have identified currency, and Tom Barrass is one of those, and they could get some high draft picks for him.
So let's break it down then. What could they get for him? Because you said high draft picks. Are you going to get a first rounder? Is it a first round pick? Is that what you're looking at?
At the very, very least, I think key backs have a high currency in the game at the moment. If you look at Ben Mackay to Essendon last year,
Josh Battle's being spoken about.
Josh Battle, I would have Tom Barrass in front of both of those players in terms of his quality of play. So, look, I'd be thinking at the West Coast Eagles.
Okay, let me ask you this question.
If they haven't made the decision already, someone that was, I think, probably unlucky to not be the captain of the side this year. They went with Oscar Allen, Liam Duggan, but Tom Barrass was certainly in the conversation. Within 12 months to not come back to the table and renegotiate his market value, I think they've already made the decision. I reckon he's gone. And
let me ask you this. If the Eagles get 2 first-rounders, for argument's sake, out of it, which,
he'll be gone because the West Coast Eagles will make that decision, not Tom.
Yeah, and I know because you're invested as a mate of his and you obviously rate him as a footballer and a leader and as a person. Is that a smart football decision?
For who?
Well, for the Eagles. It's a tough one. It's not like a...
Is it a smart football decision for the future of the club?
For the future of the club.
It potentially is, but you're certainly...
sacrificing...
not only sacrificing on-field play, right? Because I would say in games this year, West Coast would have been 150-point losses
without him and McGovern.
Right? Yeah. So that's fine. They've committed to the rebuild, finally. Are they willing to sacrifice club culture as well? Because I know he's heavily connected with this group. That's the decision they're going to make. Difficult decision for West Coast to be making. Tom Barrass's currency's probably never been higher. So he's probably sitting there going, well, if these clubs are interested, it's probably up to West Coast. He's a West Australian. It's not like he's looking... I guess my overall point would be I don't think Tom Barrass is looking elsewhere if West Coast had have come to the table and sorted it out a couple of years ago when I think it was put to him. Okay. So interesting to see what happens, especially with Tim English reportedly 6-year deal on the table from the West Coast Eagles. So it's between West Coast and the Western Bulldogs. Another player who I believe before he signed his last contract 2 years ago was keen to get to West Coast then. So Barrass, English, we've got a gluttony of deals over the last 2 years, which we've seen lots of people leave this football club. Who's been asleep at the wheel here? Because these deals, I think, were available to be done 2 years ago.
It just seems like the Tim English discussion has been around, as you say, for ages. Is he as valuable now as he was 2 years ago? I know he was all Australian. Is his form this year, does that give you any concerns, any slight concerns? Not saying he's been horrendous by any means.
Honestly, take Tim English out of it. I just wouldn't be overpaying for a ruckman. We've seen, mate. Yeah, we've seen sides be able to manage with just a tall player that can compete. All you need is competition. Tim English, for mine, he's improved in that side of his game, but he's an athlete. He moves around the ground. He's almost like another midfielder. But is his competitiveness his number one trait? I don't think so. Looking at him, so are you going to go and pay a 6-year deal and you're not getting him for $500,000 a year? You're going upwards of 7, 8. I would have thought. Are you going to go and do that for 6 years and for the potential to have a good tall player in your side?
You know what? We've had a few discussions like this, and I'm with you 100% on ruckman, and that's not a knock on those that have been before. Nick Natanui was special. We know that Max Gawn is. We know that Brodie Grundy's having a breakout year, but many clubs aren't prioritising having a ruckman and paying them the top dollar because you can survive without them. Last year, Collingwood, let's be honest, their rucking division was okay. It wasn't Darcy Cameron alongside Mason Cox did a
Yep.
bit. Who else? So it shows you. Oh, yeah, I'm with you with that. I wouldn't be throwing if you can get him at a decent price, absolutely. But I'd be concerned that if they were going to be chips all in on just Tim English in that space.
I would also say that West Coast will be moving very quickly to try and secure their next head coach. Because if you're Tom Barrass, if you're Tim English, if you're Shea Bolton, if you're Liam Baker, you're looking at West Coast going, well, who's going to coach?
Yeah.
What's going on here? Are you rebuilding? Like, what's the future look like? Because I'm not signing a 6-year deal until I know what's going on.
So when, and I've brought this up before, generally at least before grand final week, and maybe in the Eagles' case before then, when is the ideal time? I mean, tomorrow's the best time if you got someone, but
Got to run the process though.
Exactly. So are we looking at maybe the end of the home and away season, just around finals time? But bear in mind, wouldn't they also, you'd think, be talking to potentially a couple of people involved in September?
Yeah, current coaches. But we've seen that before, Skeeter, and I think clubs now know the landscape enough to go, okay, as long as you can do your job here, they've got days off during the week. Go and do your interview, go and present, go and prepare, but you need to be, committed here. I think coaches like even more lenient than players are, and players are starting to be able to go and visit during the year. If we have a look at the Dockers, I saw a little thing online last night. Fremantle Dockers fans and Skeeter, would you do? I think it's how many first rounders are for
3 first rounders. Was it Liam Baker, Shea Bolton?
Would you do 5, 6, 16 for Shea Bolton and Liam Baker?
It's an interesting question, isn't it?
I immediately read it and saw it. I was like, no. And then in my walk from making a coffee to go and take a piss, I was just talking you through exactly what I was doing, Skeeter.
Yeah, thank you.
I thought they're desperate in need of a small forward, Shea Bolton.
Tick.
Liam Baker adds, I was thinking we were talking about last week, like the Jack Redden, I think, of probably our side in 2018, like a depth player that's very good. Not going to be your best player, but like he plays every week, midfielder, gun. It probably gets them to where they need to be. That forward line for mine is, with a small forward, is as good as they'll get it. Their back line, look, they need to make sure Alex Pearce can keep playing to be good enough. That's good. The midfield, mate, with the Liam Baker, like that's you're done. So do you need to go and use those 3 first rounders anywhere else?
Well, the question is, given what's been spoken about Chad Warner,
See,
you go and call on him?
No, I'm off him because there's still
quick.
another 12 months away. You never know what happens if you're sort of hedging your bets this year, and then 12 months away he goes, you know what, I'm staying in Sydney. You've done what with the first rounders this year? Then you've got a huge gluttony of picks next year, and you can't get Chad Warner. There's too much unknown for me, Skate. Like, they're in the window now, I think. To add those 2 players this year, too much unknown in the next 12 months. Chad Warner can do what he likes. Maybe they can get that deal done in another way, and you go and take the players you can get right now.
Yeah, look, it was certainly interesting, wasn't it, to read that, and it did just spark some interest as to how this could play out. And Liam Baker, his eyes are set on West Coast. We've thought that for a fair while, so that still might be his intention. Shea Bolton's the one that he's manager and he's the club, and he apparently saying, no, I'm happy at Richmond, but
he just wants more money.
He just wants more money. So it means coming, and he plays Optus Stadium so well. Yeah, it's if that came to pass, I think the Dockers would certainly be pretty comfortable with the talent that's coming into the club.
A couple of AFL issues, Skeeter, that are bouncing around I wouldn't mind touching on before we get to the Derby preview. Calls for the sub to be abolished to alleviate doctor pressure. Brad Scott believes moving to a 5-man bench will help doctors and clubs better deal with head injury assessments during a game. I don't quite understand. I don't understand the logic.
I know there's discussion. I'm not sure if this is also around what Brad Scott's talking about, but making sure that because they're saying a lot of assessments, or some assessments are being done on the ground of concussion.
Right.
Now, to alleviate them having to do that, get them off the ground. Now, I'm not sure if that's related to this sub call. Right. We're not talking to rocket scientists here, but I'm not sure how there's long been a call not to have the sub and just to have an extra interchange player.
Right.
So if that's the sort of the role or what they're looking at, then maybe the case. But yeah, it's
like the difference. So there's 5-man in the PSA, which I'm coaching in, and I've obviously played in 4-man my whole life. The difference with a 5-man from a rotational point of view, That's how we do it, but it's how everyone does it. You have a 7-man forward line, a 7-man back line, and you just basically rotate one man off. So like the forwards and back line is just sort of rotating. You get one break each, and it's sort of just they're gone. And then your 3 sit through the midfield. So you heavier rotations through the mid, but you may be able to sometimes play a second ruckman and just rotate purely off the bench. And I'm talking strategy and tactics, and it's actually nothing to do with the head knock stuff. But what it allows you to do is have more flexibility within your team. And so then if you bring it back to the injury side of things, like maybe the 5-man bench just gives you, if you have to go back to if one's injured and you have to go back to 4 men, it doesn't really affect anything. You've got your forwards and backs sorted. You're still going to have 2 through the midfield that are rotating through. It's a lot different to having 3 men. If you've got to take one of your 4 off and then you've got to make a decision around the 5th, there's a lot of the logistics that go into it. Maybe that's what Brad Scott's saying. I also, Brad and Chris Scott are like the messiahs in this area, aren't they? Brad Scott believes and Chris Scott says this. And don't you find that funny? It's always Brad and Chris Scott coming up with stuff.
No, they're thinkers. They're thinking about ways to improve the game, or at least improve their chances of winning in the game.
Would this improve the game? The AFL has rejected a push from GWS to add its players' names to the back of jumpers after Giants submitted a formal proposal in recent weeks for the club to adopt the initiative on a permanent basis.
I wonder why the Giants are doing it. Is because their market in Sydney, they're trying to just get fans more involved, or certainly know who some of the blokes are running out there?
Probably. Like it's all a marketing, branding, eyes on game for them, right? They want to compete with rugby. They probably want to sell more jumpers. They probably want. There's a lot of things that would come.
Yeah, rugby league doesn't do it. They do, I think, state of origin,
soccer.
Soccer does to a certain degree. Look, I don't mind it, but it's not one. It's been brought up a few times in the past about getting that off the ground.
You and I couldn't see it. Let's be honest.
No, it's hard enough seeing some of the numbers. Richmond, when they came here, I had no idea who they were half the time because they had a white. The jumper just made it really tough to see their numbers.
Yes.
So I just want to see their numbers. Front and back, by the way.
Yes.
If we can have numbers on the front and back, just from a broadcasting perspective.
Would that make it easier, would it?
I think it does, yeah.
So when you're calling, you can't see the back of the player.
Yeah, if you've got the binoculars on, and just in case it's a new player, and being honest, sometimes, in fact, many times, there's guys like, I don't know who the hell's
Monez
that?
Wakefield.
Monez Wakefield. You know what his first name is?
No.
No, nor do I. I've forgotten. But it's Danny or something. Anyway, so they're running towards you thinking, right, no idea. But if you've got number 45, as is Monez Wakefield is, then quick bang, you've got him in your head. So yeah.
Would you need a big one on the front, or would it, like on the over the heart, be okay?
Yeah, that does, mate. So the jumper name, I understand the theory, and the AFL has given it a bit of thinking and thought, we've got bigger issues than that. Cross it off.
It's Andy.
Andy, sorry. What do I call him? Someone else.
You said Callum.
Did not.
Brad Scott believes, Chris Scott believes, Mark Reddings believes that there should be numbers on the front of jumper. I like that headline.
It's just a common sense for identification. That's the point you made about the Giants with the names on the back of jumpers.
Put a front page out, please, Jane.
What about a Saga Radicalea? How would you put that on the back of a friggin' jumper?
Very good. Will Schofield, Mark Reddings, Shoulder FootyCast. Excuse me. Fremantle v West Coast, Optus Stadium. It's a night derby. I can't remember the last night derby, Skater.
Yeah, I can. It was around 7 this year. Around 6. Are you serious? Are you taking the piss?
I'm dead serious. Is that what it was?
It was a night game.
It was a night game.
It was a Saturday night game in round 6. Jaden will check it up, but I'm pretty sure it was 6-10 again.
I felt like felt like that. There's no way it was.
Okay. Right, that's fair enough.
There's no way it was. It was at a night game.
I'm just telling you.
All right, check what the start time was.
I remember doing the Channel 7 preview show and then doing a post-game show at 9:30 and getting to the car park and there was no one there. Everyone had gone home.
So Skeeter's checked his invoices to see what time the game started. Mate, so I do remember about the last derby. We gave West Coast no chance. Like, and
a bit like this week.
Of those. It was the same because Freo had come back from gather round. They'd challenged Carlton and Port Adelaide, who we both thought were very good sides. And we just thought West Coast are no good, no chance for Freo. And there was no chance that Freo were losing this game. The same as this week. Do you give West Coast any chance?
I've said this to you a couple of times. I've had to think after that loss in the Derby by the Dockers. I reckon they were mentally flat when they came back from Adelaide. Not from being away from home, but just the manner in which they lost those two games. Carlton was just that was just a complete botched job from obviously a couple of areas. But
I was on the hill for that one.
They lost that game inexplicably, and the Port Adelaide game they lead, all but until the last minute and a half, and then was it Juan Francis pushes forward. So they were in such good positions, and they walk away from Adelaide with 0 points next to their name. I just felt that they come home, they've got the Eagles. Okay, well, we're back home. It'll take care of it. So I think it was a real mental letdown for them, as much as they won't say that, but that was my read on the fact that those two losses took a bit out of them, which I don't think at the moment their mindset and how they're travelling is completely different.
Last derby started at 6:10
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
I have no recollection of that whatsoever, but Eagles did win last time.
How many times were you concussed in your career?
Oh, probably enough. So look, I think to break this one down, I don't think Freo and West Coast are looking too much at that game, to be honest. I think they're both very different sides, especially Freo, to be honest.
And a lot of it was, it looked like attitudinal to me. It looked like that one team was just completely
cooked.
Everything went right, and the other one, it's just a disastrous night. So I don't think there's much point revisiting for either side too much of that.
West Coast will get back in McGovern, Yeo, Waterman, and maybe Matt Flynn. That's 4 huge ins for West Coast. The Dockers will lose Alex Pearce. Josh Draper would be the likely replacement for that. And we've got a double milestoner, Skeeter. Tom Barrass will play in his 150th life member of the football club. And Jake Waterman will play in his 100th game for the footy club. So I'm just trying to build a little bit of...
So there's 2 sets of boos as they raise the bar and they come out.
That is right. So it is the away derby for West Coast. I think Fremantle have got their midfield mix completely right. I think they have got their offensive game humming again. What we saw against Melbourne, the run, the carry, the Jordan Clark rugby run off stoppage, that's what we've been seeing for a few weeks now. I think Fremantle... walk into this derby with huge confidence, and they'll actually need a decent win too for their percentage.
Yeah, and their clearance work last week was off the charts. I think 47, the second biggest differential in history, and the Eagles clearly are. That they've got a lot of areas of concern, and the dual attacking methods of Tracy, who's kicked 39-13 and 28-14 for Amos. Amos is 28-24 for this, so hasn't really hit the scoreboard with as much accuracy as he would like. But yeah, as you said, Barrass comes into the game in his milestone match, and McGovern returns to the side. So the Eagles are certainly going to be better than what we saw against St Kilda, I would hope.
Let's just say that all those players do return, McGovern, Yeo, Waterman, Flynn. I think the matchups at either end of the ground and through the midfield, on paper, says this should be a really good derby. This for mine further accentuates the fact how shithouse West Coast are going, because on paper, West Coast back line up against the forward line of Freo really well. McGovern and Barrass on Amos and Tracy, right? I think it'll be Barrass on Tracy, probably more. Oh, actually, you know what? McGovern on Tracy, Barrass on Amos. He's been playing a little bit deeper. Who do you play on Luke Jackson?
That's the tricky one, isn't it? Is Harry Edwards stay in the side and do that?
Maybe, yep, because I thought I was impressed with him last time around. So Harry Edwards stays in the side to play on those 3 talls, and then I think their smaller options are covered by West Coast. Fremantle, of course, a very good forward line and functioning well, so that's a good battle. At the other end of the ground, you've got Waterman, who's 5th in the Coleman. You've got Jack Darling, who's done what he's done, and you've got Oscar Allen, who, he's missed a lot of this year, but he's a very, very good player. So Draper, Ryan, who's the third tall?
Cox, yeah. So I was just caught by the when you said Darling. So you think Darling will play?
Oh, shit. No, I don't. Absolutely not. I was just rolling that off the tongue. Jack Williams.
Jack Williams. And the other one, here's the question for you. Given it's a rebuild.
Thank you for that, Scott.
And given,
Thank you for that.
Given that it's a rebuild with Jared Schofield, look, he's indicated by dropping Darling first up. Is there a chance that an Archer Reid could come in to make a debut in a derby? Is there a chance they might just expose a young player who they haven't? Because what is the point, seriously, of just dishing up the same type of team week in, week out, which I think we've seen last week and the week before. Zane True, Luke Edwards, and they were good in... Certainly, Zane True was good against the week before.
Yes.
In Perth, but...
Melbourne. No, not Melbourne. Did they play? Well, neither of us know. St Kilda.
And then
in Perth.
In Perth the week before, they were pretty competitive. But then what we saw after that against the Saints from a couple of those young guys, they turned it over and wasn't great.
Well, so either ends great matchups, and then I think inside if Matt Flynn comes up, Darcy's a decent matchup in the ruck, and then the midfield, like again on paper, Kelly, Reid versus Brayshaw, Young, and Sarong. Like that's, mate.
It should be competitive.
West Coast should be more competitive than they are. We know that, and I think Fremantle know that too. They'll be expecting West Coast best, but if you start well against West Coast, if you put it to them early, I think this is a lay down misère for the Freo Dockers.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that basis. I think, you can only go on what we've seen in the past few weeks, and I think even being beaten by Hawthorn, the Dockers did a lot right that day, and the Hawks are the inform team of the competition almost. So, no, I think they win the game. I think the fact that it's Optus in their home game, I think they know not just winning the game, and not saying percentage is going to be anywhere near the front of their mind, but they'll want to continue to. They've got Essendon the following week.
They've got a good percentage though.
But their percentage is just behind Brisbane, which is and they've got the Gold Coast, no certainty there. So it's Fremantle's match for mine. I think they'll go on and win the game, and I think Caleb Sarong will win the Glendenning Allen Medal.
I think Andy Brayshaw is back to his absolute best. I think Andy Brayshaw will win the Glendenning Allen Medal.
Well, we probably, between the two of them, they had 77 disposals last week, so we're probably on the right train if they do something similar this week.
Carlton, Port Adelaide, Friday night. This is a good game, I think. Port Adelaide sitting 7th. Carlton just cleared second spot on the ladder by 2 points to Brisbane and Fremantle. And this is important for both sides. Port Adelaide, more important to stay in touch. Carlton, more important to put themselves, they need to finish second so they don't end up third and playing Sydney in Sydney first qualifying final week, or fourth playing Brisbane, something like that. Third or fourth playing Sydney, or third playing Brisbane, or third playing the Dockers. Like Carlton need to finish second here to make their first week of finals look okay.
Absolutely. And look, they've beaten Port Adelaide convincingly earlier this year in Adelaide, but Port's record at Marvel's very good. They've won 10 of their past 11 there. So they like playing under the lid. They're a team that I think can really trouble Carlton on Friday night, tomorrow night. They've just got this feeling that Carlton, they have Taylor. They've got some injuries as well.
Yep, Tom
DeConey's missing for the rest of the home and away season.
Yep.
So there's some issues on that front.
Lost to Bulldogs, lost to GWS, and beat Richmond by 10 goals the last 3.
Yeah, there's Carlton, again, I think are vulnerable here. And I'm going to go out on a bit of a limb here and think Port Adelaide can win the game.
Is it a roughie? It's a little bit. Well, it's rough.
It is roughish.
Yeah. It's Skeet's roughish of the week.
Roughish of the week. I just think they are able to trouble Carlton tomorrow night, who, for me, they beat North. There's obviously the quality in the middle there. I just think there's, if they can somehow find a way to curtail Charlie and obviously Harry's sideline, is he?
No, he's all good. Of course, he's all good. Unconscious on the weekend on the field, and he's all good. He'll be playing in one of the biggest games. Of course, he will. Alir and Radigalia v. Kerno Mackay.
Massive.
Huge battle. And then I think they've got to tag, Paddy Cripps if you put Adelaide. So this is how you beat Carlton. And you stop the goal supply to Kerno and Mackay.
Well, what do the Blues do with the likes of Butters and...
Yeah. You got to put some time into them, but you're telling me Port Adelaide's going to win, so I'm just giving you the how.
I just because guess what? Every time I've thought I'll pick the winner on Friday night, I've got to go against my natural instinct, and this is Port Adelaide. I think are a genuine chance tomorrow night.
Right. Well, you're a battler, so I'm going to pick Carlton because you've sold me into thinking Port Adelaide can actually win, so I might go to Carlton.
I'm only doing it because I've been so shit on my tipping on Friday nights for about 2 years.
North Melbourne v Geelong. In Tassie.
Blundstone Arena.
Wow. Blustery. That's Hobart, I believe. Cats set to get back. A few players, no one too serious. Jeremy Cameron will be looking to rebound after being completely owned by Rory Lobb and fathered on the weekend last weekend. Sorry, I got it. You don't see it happen too often with Jeremy Cameron, but he's kicked 17 goals across his last 3 games against North Melbourne. I think Griffin Logue will go to him, who's done a good job on him in the past, even in Freo colours, I believe. Yeah, this will be a really interesting game. Like, I don't think this is a lay down Mazette Geelong win.
No,
third on the left, fourth, fifth, sixth on the ladder.
They've won their last 12 games against North, which most teams have had a pretty good record against North, to be honest with you. I do think that North Melbourne, look at their performances over the last 6 weeks. They were belted, I think, by Sydney. Yeah, that's right. But outside of that, they've been far. Their numbers in terms of where they sit in the ladder and what they are playing better footy than other teams in that bottom six by a margin, I would have thought. So
I think North finish above West Coast on the ladder this year.
Yeah, well, they play each other.
Yeah, so I think North win that game because it's at home for North.
As we've discussed on radio about tanking and not wanting to win and getting top draft picks. Well, I think a lot of the clubs, including North and Richmond, play each other moving forward.
They play each other next week, North and Richmond.
Absolutely. So, look, I think Geelong deserves to go in favourites. You talk about some of the ins for the Cats. Round 22, Tom Hawkins against Fremantle. That's the game he has penciled in to return at this stage. So,
is that a farewell game?
I don't know if it's a farewell game. I wouldn't have thought it's in Perth. So, I think it'll be
farewell for us.
Can't be He's got a final series potentially to play here.
We didn't want to come back too early with a lot of mid-foot injury.
What do you say too early? He would have already missed about a month and a half by now, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I don't know when he went out of the game.
But it's been a while. So, look, he's round 22. Cats winning this, but I agree with you. If it's one of those cold, blustery, similar to Geelong actually, days, I just think North will be very competitive.
So do I. Can you pick him?
No. No, you're not going to pick him.
Yeah, I can. Will's roughie of the week this week. Absolutely. North Melbourne will beat Geelong. No worries about it. Everything trending in their fashion. It's a away game. It's Geelong haven't been impressive for mine. Certainly not last week in shitty conditions, which they're going to cop again. And they've got to travel, Geelong. So thanks very much. North Melbourne win, and they jump on top of West Coast on the ladder. Gold Coast v Brisbane. People's First Stadium. One of the worst. I reckon it's one of the worst. Yeah, I'm sure they got paid for it, clearly, but one of the worst stadium names going around at the moment. This is the Q Clash.
Yeah, it is. By the way, it's going to be 12 and sunny in Hobart on Saturday.
12?
Yes, but still.
Okay.
Anyway, Q Clash. This is another game where you think of Harris Andrews missing because of concussion protocols, that the window opens just purely because where it's played. And we know there's some quality in that Gold Coast side.
Yep.
I think that, obviously they have to do some work on the likes of Lockie Neal and Rayner's in really good touch. They're playing some good footy now, Brisbane, and they've had to. What I liked about last week is that against the Swans they jumped them with 5-1, and then they really conceded a lot of territory and scoreboard pressure was put on them, but they found a way in the last quarter. That to me shows a sign of a team of a bit of maturity as opposed to just being flat track bullies in the sense, and they beat a quality side in Sydney, so that's a huge win for them.
Gold Coast haven't lost at home this year. Could this be the first? It's Noah Anderson's 100th game for the Gold Coast Suns. I feel like he's been playing longer than that, so is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. Lions on a 7-game winning streak. Brisbane has one key defender playing or even available, Ryan Lester, who is 192, and you wouldn't call him a burly backman. Harris Andrews concussion, Darragh Joyce jaw, Tom Doedee knee year, Jack Payne foot, Darcy Gardner knee, all unavailable.
That's that's a real opening for the Gold Coast.
So do you know who they're speculating on playing back after my carry on and Rory Lobb last week? The bingo card did not have Rory Lobb being the best backman in the game in round 19. In round 20, we may see the birthing of a new backman, Eric the Eel Hipwood, to play in the back line. Eric Hipwood. For mine, I don't know if Eric has what it takes to play in the back line from what I've seen and what I've seen up close and what I've seen over the last few years. I don't know if he's a backman.
Well, nor is Joey Danaher from what I've seen either. So.
I don't know if Joey is either. But you may have to play one of them.
Yeah, well, it's and think of what the Suns have to offer in that department. They've got
Ben King.
Ben King is their obvious target. Tall wise, that's a concern for Brizzy because that's going to leave them really vulnerable. Yep. I would have thought, even with shaping around their forwards to push back occasionally, whether it's Hipwood or probably Hipwood. That's a concern.
Who are you picking? I can't tip against Gold Coast at home, unfortunately. To break the 7-game winning streak, I'm picking Gold Coast.
Yeah, I'm with you. Gold Coast. I think that's a genuinely
an upset.
Upset, yeah. Given the way the Gold Coast Suns are playing away from home, but at home, and more so Brisbane, I reckon they would have got themselves so geared for last week against Sydney, and they've lost bodies. I'm thinking that Gold Coast win this.
A little investment on that one. That's not a bad tip by you and I. St Kilda v Essendon, Marvel Stadium, Saturday. Under the lid. The reason it's tough, we don't know what side we're going to get out of either of these teams. Are we going to get a competitive St Kilda side that when the switch goes on, they look like the Harlem Globetrotters, or are we just going to get dour, can't score, can't stop scores, shithouse St Kilda? Are we going to get Essendon, one of the best ball movement teams in the competition that dominates from stoppage and looks like they're taking the piss for free? Or are we going to get the Essendon that's uncompetitive, that can't tackle, can't put pressure on? When the heat comes on them, they go to water and fumble all over the place? I don't know how this game's going to go because these are the two most unreliable teams of the season.
Thank you, Will. Yeah, I don't disagree. As look, St Kilda, the opposition that they were confronted with last week is a question mark to be able to kick that sort of score.
Yep.
And Essendon, gee, I seriously can't read them as a footy club. I mean, they dropped Dyson Heppel last week. They've got Sam Draper, who to me, they had chances against Adelaide. I'm just trying to paint a positive for Essendon where they were in a winning position after being 4 goals down. So they showed some character to come back and be in front by a margin. But as you said, they always looked in the last quarter like they were going to find a way to lose the game.
Yeah, which is worrying.
It is a worry. I still think they've got more quality in their side. I think Darcy Parish is coming back, but might have to come back through the VFL. I still think they've got enough
the quality they need. A slow, sideways kicking midfielder.
Oh, okay. Well,
that's what he does. He doesn't take ground.
No, but
I'm not disrespectful in a way, but I don't know if that's the sort of player they need in the side.
But if he's fit and ready to come back,
they need a hard, but
they don't have that
bullshit midfielder.
But they don't have that at their disposal. So I think Essendon probably still have enough quality there. It's going to be one of those matches where for the Bombers, if they do lose it though, you can just feel the floor coming out of their season.
They couldn't lose this. Told Goldstein and Sam Draper through the ruck. Do they play 2 rucks? I sort of had my say on Sam Draper a couple of weeks ago. I think he lacks that competitive nature that we spoke about, sort of with the Tim English acquisition off the top as a ruckman. You just need to be competitive, and Todd Goldstein's been doing that for a decent amount of time now. So maybe the ruck coach will just play himself solo in the Bombers side. Who are you picking?
Bombers.
Yeah, that's worrying given, everyone's talking about them being a top 2 side about 4 weeks ago, that you and I have taken big sides, because I don't know who to pick either, but I'll pick the Bombers too.
Well, only because you think, just looking at what's at stake for their season compared to St Kilda, who, Essendon have to show something.
You'd like to think so. I'll pick them too. Melbourne v GWS MCG night game. This is a must-win for Melbourne, but the Giants, anyone that's in the top 14, pretty much every game is a must-win at the moment, which is great for the season, of course. Melbourne were so disappointing last week against Fremantle. Like, I can't describe how poor they looked, and maybe that was how good Freo looked, but with no Max Gawn and no ruckman, Melbourne got their pants pulled down at stoppage and around the ground.
Yeah, well, if that changed its selection tonight and he's selected,
looks like he will be. He's doing fitness tests I saw yesterday. Looked okay.
Yeah, I mean, they will look terrible against the Eagles over here, and they've been thumped by Fremantle. MCG's far more likely to see a competitive performance from them. Look, I've really liked the season of Trent Rivers. He's been one of their shining lights. But last week we saw May and Lever and the defence of Melbourne get exposed, not so much by their own fault, but also what we're seeing up the ground in the midfield was not putting enough pressure on. They got absolutely creamed in as we said, the clearances. And the Giants, well, the question mark is, can they keep some players in their side, some quality, as opposed, we've seen Cornelio injured, we've seen lots of...
He may come back in, Stephen Cornelio. A couple of ins maybe, Stephen Cornelio's shoulder, and Sam Taylor back with his testicle. I'm just reading.
No, the way he said
I'm just reading.
With his testicles.
I knew you'd fucking laugh.
No,
any chance.
Sam Taylor with his testicles in place. What are you saying? Yeah,
I said Stephen Cornelio with his shoulder and Sam Taylor with his testicle. What would you like me to say? Would you like me to say his nether regions? What would you like me to say?
No, I like it. I'm very happy with that.
You're right.
This is a very hard game to try and pick as well, because the Giants, I wouldn't say they beat Richmond by 4 goals. I don't think this is they haven't played that well there over the recent times. That's what, that's a fact.
Yeah.
But their quality there is something. Have we seen, is there another gear that we will see from the Giants this year?
I think they have it. Yeah, I think Sam Taylor back is big for them. Like, it allows Buckley and Taylor to kind of work in tandem rather than hoping they can get the job done, which sets a lot up. But in the end, like every team, mate, like the midfield is the part. Tom Green looks like he's playing some really good footy. Lockie Whitfield's one of the best players in the competition at the moment. Like he is giving them their run and their drive. They were lucky to keep Toby Bedford. I think his pressure around the footy and playing that high half forward role is important to them. That sets their whole tsunami thing up. Players like him and Daniels and these sorts of guys that put the pressure on, like that's what they base their game on. So for me, Melbourne looked susceptible to the pressure last week that Freo put in. Like Andy Brayshaw, I know you called this game, I think, like he would have 5 rundown tackles. Like that sort of effort, if GWS brings that, I think they're unbeatable by Melbourne. But can they bring it away from home at the G? That's the question.
Yeah, that is the question.
I pretty easily pick GWS here. From what I saw from Melbourne, I wasn't impressed at all. GWS.
No, but then you and I both called that game between Melbourne and Essendon, and we were impressed by Melbourne, but maybe more so, less impressed by Essendon.
Essendon. Fucking Essendon. Seriously, that pissed me off.
Well, it's just because we can't get you can't trust them.
No.
And that's the issue.
Trustworthy.
No, I'm
It's like you on bloody down at races on a Saturday. Can you trust you? I'm not sure if you can. Not sure if we're going to find you at the back having a ciggy or not. You're a little bit like Essendon, actually.
Oh, sorry.
I'm God's gift. Don't worry about that.
Find a vape somewhere. I'm picking the Giants. I've jumped on your train, and you know what happens when that happens.
Yep.
We
looking forward to Melbourne. Yep. Looking forward to Melbourne win on the weekend. Collingwood v Richmond MCG. Usually we look at this as a big game and big clubs, but no Richmond. No, Toby Dancurvis is out with a concussion. He's been one of their shining lights, if any.
Doesn't he win the Jack Dye medal this year by?
Yes.
If I don't know how many games he's played, but every time I've seen him, Taranto. But look, I know I saw him against the Dockers here, but he was close to best on ground, or certainly easily the Tigers' best player. Yeah. He is the heart and soul of that footy club at the moment, and the question marks are more about poor old Adam Uze, about having to try and confront a list rebuild, which we knew was coming for a premiership team by 3.
What's going on with Dusty?
Yeah, that's the question.
What's happening?
The question. I don't know.
What is happening there?
He's got a back issue. Some people are saying that he's invested in the club. It just seems
all this
weird.
talk and random chat, why wouldn't Richmond just be like, oh, he's got a sore back. We've given him 3 weeks off. He's getting towards the back end of his career. He's cooked. Would we be that surprised if they came out and said that? Would we go, oh my God, Dusty Martin doesn't give a shit about the club? Or wouldn't we just go, oh right, Dusty's having 3 weeks off, see ya? But it's just the mystery and the secrets.
Just quickly try and put yourself in his shoes, Dustin Martin's shoes for next year. At a club, Richmond, he's an immortal there, a legend, call him what you want. But he's going to be playing in a side that, let's be honest, is going to be struggling next year. How do you get yourself up for that? Or do you, I know you're going to get criticised, go and finish off your career at a young club like the Suns or somewhere else and give yourself where would you sit with that? It's a
difficult for me to put my feet into the shoes of a legend like that.
No, but just what the mindset, but thinking would be: do you just finish off at a club and show the loyalty, or do you try and give yourself a bit of a kickstart in life?
Take what you can get. Probably Richmond Gold Coast have probably got X amount of money on the table.
2 years up there, maybe.
Go and have a bit of sun up there. Beautiful place to live. Like, why wouldn't you if someone else wants you? I mean, Richmond don't want to go and give him a shitload of money to stay at the club for 2 more years, do they? Whether or not Gold Coast are getting what they, I don't think they're getting golden dusty, are they?
No.
Right? So, be a leadership. Of course, Hardwick and he would have a great relationship, and he'd be able to teach some of their young players about what it takes to be a good player and a good player in big games. Like that's what he's been able to do. So that's what they'll be employing him for, not necessarily to be the good player in the big games, but to teach these young midfielders at Gold Coast who can't do that at this stage.
And in big moments, particularly away from home, which is what they've struggled with.
Mason Cox could be back.
Yes, well, they looked completely out on their feet last week against the Hawks, and it's looking grim for Collingwood. I'm not sure there's an answer in the short term. Now they're suddenly saying the list is too old. About 7 or 8 weeks ago, we said they were back. So
they're not playing finals.
They're not playing finals.
That's done, isn't
it?
And
even if they somehow conjure a miracle, Scully, they're not going to be a factor.
Who's Brown? Is it Jeff Brown?
Jeff Brown's the president. Yeah,
he was out saying if we make finals, we'll be everyone will be shaking in their boots if they're playing Collingwood. Please.
Yeah, well, Paul Fitzpatrick said last year, was it last year that the Eagles won't be winning the Wooden Spoon?
Yeah, and what did I say?
Yeah, but
please.
But again, that was trying to promote, to be fair to Paul and to Jeff, they're trying to engender some optimism at the club.
I would probably just focus on whatever else you're meant to be doing rather than talking shit. Like, that's just absolute garbage.
Yeah. Well,
that's just garbage. It was garbage by Paul Fitzpatrick, and it was garbage by Jeff Brown. What are we doing? Oh, go Collingwood. You want to cheerlead them from the stands?
Who are you selecting?
Who are they playing? Collingwood.
Magpies.
I picked Collingwood.
Yeah, me too. That was always heading that direction.
I forgot who they play. Sydney Western Bulldogs, SCG. This is a good game. One of the best of the weekend, I think. Given Western Bulldogs are back in form. Sydney, not in form. They're nowhere near to form. They're spluttering a little bit. I know that the games they've lost has not been
5 points, 3 games in total.
But they're not in form.
No, they're not. And their numbers. Now, this is something I've listened to. I'll be honest with you. I heard it from
I was going to say, I know
Daniel.
you're sitting at home crunching them.
Well, I don't do that, and that's not my area of expertise, and I don't know what my expertise is yet, but I'll find it hopefully before I leave this earth. But Daniel Hoyne from Champion Data summed it up pretty well. It's called points differential turnover.
Is that right?
So, in essence, Sydney's been at number 1. Don't laugh. Sydney's been at number 1 for a long time, but the numbers have started to trail in the last, say, 2 months.
Right.
And given the results, that's not surprising. At number 2 on this points differential turnover.
Points differential from turnover.
From turnover. Yeah, so when you turn over the... Yeah, so
Yes.
I know you want to try and make me look stupid, but Brisbane is...
You're doing a fine job.
Carlton's number 2, just behind Sydney.
Okay.
So it's about...
Okay.
About being able to capitalise on turnovers, and that's why Sydney's number 1, Carlton's number 2, Brisbane's number 3, so it actually mirrors the ladder, and Fremantle's at number 4, improving rapidly. So Sydney's been elite for a long time, but they have fallen away in one of those key metrics that Champion Data rates.
So I was just trying to help you. I wasn't trying to make you look stupid. Points differential from turnover, and I might look stupid just like you all the time, Skeeter, but I have played and lived with this stat. So this is not only points scored from turnover, it's points ability to defend behind
against and for, yes.
Right. So in footy terms, like when that ball turns over, can you defend behind it if the other team has it, or can you score from it? And like this has been a big part of winning footy forever.
Well, I think 17 of the last 18 premiers have been top 3 in this category, so that shows you.
Yes. So Sydney have fallen out, or are they still at the top?
No, they're still number 1, Carlton's number 2, Brisbane's number 3, and Fremantle's number 4, which is the ladder. As we speak.
Very interesting, and good for Freo fans to hear that.
Yeah, well, Fremantle have, according to Dan, taken a real jump in that area. Daniel Hoyne. I mean, I've interviewed him a couple of times, so I've met him, and he's a nice fella. But
DH, Hoyne.
Just try and give you a little bit of something outside the
knowledge. Callum Mills, he'll be back after being managed last week, after 1 week back, and then he was managed. Found interesting. So he'll be
sore.
Yeah.
They said he was sore after the first game back, yeah.
Right.
A bit like you after training it with Aquinas on the week.
I am sore. I woke up sore this morning.
You're playing rugby league next week, I'm told.
Excuse me?
You're playing in a
actually am.
Yeah, I know.
Are you playing in that?
No, I'm doing radio.
Bailey Dale, 150th game. I think the biggest battle here, and a really good game, will be the intriguing midfield battle. Grundy, Heaney, Warner, Goulden, Parker, Mills, V, English, Bont, Libba, Treloar, Richards, McRae, if he gets a game. Arguably the 2 best midfields in the comp.
Yeah,
on paper.
Well.
And probably on how they play.
And Bulldogs again, they've strung together some really good performances. That Cats victory was outstanding.
Papley and Rampy are both out.
Yeah, and Papley's out for a significant amount of time.
Right, is that a syndesmosis?
I think he's going to be multiple weeks. I stand corrected on that. So that being said, I just wonder whether Sydney, now again, this is more, you might know from a footy perspective, whether they've been through a higher training load in recent times towards it, and then they obviously get themselves right just before the finals.
Will we be talking about it though if they had have kicked one more goal in some of these games?
That's
probably not. Right? We just think, Sydney's the best side. So they haven't been able to find a win like Collingwood did last year and the year before. Like they were winning those games.
Yeah.
Sydney haven't found that.
But they're still 2 games clear.
Yet. Exactly right. So maybe higher training load. I think teams now are a little scared of doing that. I think sometimes you start seeing some injured players, but it would have been a good time to do it. You don't want to be doing it too close to finals. No. They would have been sitting pretty clear. They would have had those discussions for sure. So you could be onto something there, Skeeter. Well done.
That's nice. I think Sydney at the SCG, as good as the Bulldogs are, I just expect Sydney's quality to be enough.
Big game for Bulldogs. Like to come up against the best. They're not in top 8 yet. They're in 9th. Like this is a much bigger game for the Bulldogs than it is Sydney. And we've been saying that for a few weeks for Sydney. So maybe that's the issue, the mentality. We're 2 games clear. do we need to win this? Not really. We'd love
to, but yeah.
I'll pick Sydney too, but I can see it being a good game. Adelaide v Hawthorn, last game, Adelaide Oval, Sunday afternoon. It's interesting this year with the way the Hawks started and how good they are going. Like, they've won, whatever it is, 12 from 13 or something 10 from 11, whatever it is. But every single game for them is still an elimination final, effectively, because they started from so far back. It doesn't matter how good they're playing. If they drop one of these games, they're almost with Collingwood and done. Like, they're 2 points out of the 8 right now, and they're a game behind 5th. But if they lose one, and most of those sides above them win, they're then 2 games out with 4 games to go, and they probably can't make the finals.
Whatever happens from here on in, Hawks have shown us enough this year to give us, and give more so Sam Mitchell, real confidence as to the track they're on. So
that's a good point.
They've been really good to watch. In fact, they're the feel-good story of the comp. There's no doubt about it. And I didn't think I'd be saying that, going back 5 or 6 years ago when we're thinking, thank God Hawthorn's, having a tough time. But it's the way they play their footy. It's the love of, each other and, the snaps on the ground, the selfies, all that sort of stuff. That's how they're rolling. It's great. And their form at the Adelaide Oval hasn't been great. That being said, they led by 40 points against Port, got rolled in the last 2 seconds against the Power.
They had another game there in Gather Round. Was it against Adelaide? No.
I think was it against even Collingwood and they got rolled?
Collingwood. It was Collingwood.
Collingwood rolled.
And they came back hard and couldn't quite get it done.
Yeah, got rolled by a goal. So, look, I'm going to stay with them. I think they've got their midfield's doing all the metrics that we look at them at the moment. They're playing such good footy. Adelaide, outstanding against Essendon in the first half after being jumped, and they showed great character. But no, I don't think I'm going to jump off Hawthorn yet.
How's their points differential turnover looking?
Not in the top 4 as we speak. That's just a given. I've given you the 4. I've given you the numbers. Right. I've given you,
Maybe you could ask Hoyne.
I've plagiarised as much as I could out of that to make a point. But thank you,
Will Schofield. I'll pick Hawthorn.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, that's right.
Will Schofield. Mark Ready. Felt shelled at FootyCast. That's right. You reckon? You
have. You've tipped Hawthorn.
Yes, thank you. Okay, let's go to our audience, our listeners, and fans that somehow keep listening to us. That does surprise.
I've got paperwork. I've done research.
Where have you pulled that from?
It's took it from the newsroom, the 6BR newsroom.
What have you come in here with? Can you see that on the cameras, Shane?
No, I've got some information about
scribbles,
AFL Grand Final entertainment. I haven't got to that yet.
What's happening there? You can let us
Katy
know.
Perry's confirmed, which is good.
Is that all?
Well, she's 143 million she sold in records. And I will say, the history, just in brief, of the AFL Grand Final entertainment started in 1977. A guy called Barry Crocker was the first bloke. Yeah, so the only term you know Barry Crocker is when you've had a shocker.
Yes.
That's so 1977 was him. Mike Brady and John Farnham did it in 1979.
Mike Brady up there, Kazali?
Yes, it's great.
He's 79.
79, mate.
Holy shit.
He is the institution of grand finals. Probably the low light, I guess, was 1987. Waltzing Matilda was sung by Daryl Summers. So just shows you how far AFL entertainment or VFL entertainment's come a fair way.
Daryl Summers.
1987. So we had Robbie Williams last year, Katy Perry. But in 87, the year that the Blues knocked... my first ever grand final at the MCG, the Blues knocked over the Hawks. Daryl Summers.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
That is very good gear from you, Skeeter. Rick Peterson writes in, Dear Will and Joe.
Joe
Biden.
Okay.
Very good, Rick. I didn't know what you're talking about. Rick, you're a bloody genius. Don't you reckon?
No, I don't follow that. He's 81 and he's addressed the nation a couple of hours ago. But
how'd you do that? How'd you get there and here at the same time, Joe?
Well, if I'm Joe, you're Donald, a complete dick.
I'll be president of the States, no worries. You've just retired.
Trust me, another bloke will be coming for you.
Oh, no. Skeeter. Oh, Joe, don't say that. Really love the Monday and Thursday podcast. I'm a long-time BackChat supporter, Will, as well. Good to hear, Rick. Yes, I will attest to that. I've been a Patreon at the lowest level for ages. Okay. No need to throw your weight around here, Rick. I live in Geelong. I like that. So obviously I can't attend all the cool functions in Perth. Apologies for that, Rick. This led me to thinking, how could I support you and maybe get some benefits? Would you give some consideration to an Eastern States level Skeeter? It would still attract discounts from the merch store and give you an opportunity for you guys to do a biannual function here in Melbourne and record a couple of shows. Maybe go to a few Eagles games too. I'm sure I'm not the only Eastern State listener. Give it some thought anyway. Cheers, Rick Peterson. P.S. Very good of you to give Joe Biden a job considering how old he is.
All I heard is going to Melbourne for a couple of weeks.
Yes.
I'm there.
Yeah, I reckon. What do you think? A bit of feedback would be nice over
A bit of sponsorship, maybe even just to help us along because we're battlers.
Maybe there'll be a venue owner listening right now that could say, "Hey, why don't you come and do the Shelter FootyCast live from XXX?" And I don't mean XXX.
No, yeah, not that particular place. That's in King Street.
Although Skeeter may be interested. Okay, Instagram, a couple of bit of feedback here. G'day, lads. Wilma here. Just wanting to know what will happen to Jared Schofield next year since Adam Simpson getting sacked clearly wasn't Scoey's choice to get put into head coach's position. So when a new coach comes in, if they do, will he get to go back down to an assistant, or we get sacked from West Coast as well and be out of the system?
There's no guarantee. That's the question. Well, I'm sure that's what he's thinking as well. I'm sure when he took on this role, it's not going to hurt him in staying with the footy club moving forward because for him, a club like the Eagles at the moment with the list, how they're playing, unless he was to produce a miracle, which clearly doesn't look like it's happening, and that's winning 5 of your last 7 games, you're in a hiding to nothing, don't you think?
Yeah. You still want to take the opportunity,
exactly,
because it's hiding to nothing, but it's also just an absolute free crack at running an AFL club for 6 months.
But you don't want to be the sacrificial lamb that goes, well, we got beaten by 40, 50, 60.
Yeah, but I don't think people look at that.
No, that's what I'm saying. I hope they don't.
You just add it to your resume of like, hey, I was able to lead this.
Whether it helps him, whether it hinders him from obviously getting the top job.
I just don't think it could hinder getting the experience in a side that we know shit house. He's taken over the second worst side in the competition right now. They weren't winning before they got him. He's not going to win with them. He was competitive in his first one against Brisbane. He wasn't competitive against St Kilda, but that's on the side. You can't change really anything.
I think more likely than less, irrespective of, say he doesn't get the top job, I think there's more chance that he'll be there as an assistant coach than not. That's with the club, I think, will say no. I think he'll be one of the guys that stays.
Justo316, Will Schofield looks like a friendlier Max Gawn. Thank you, Justo. And over on YouTube, lots of comments to bring in Nathan Buckley, Hickmott, Jamie Graham, or Scott Selwood's a name that got thrown out for the West Coast Eagles coaching job.
Again, I'll be honest, I think I said this on radio. I've got no idea who some of these assistants are in terms of what they bring to the table because we don't know enough about them, Scully. You've got some insight. That's why you brought up Adrian Hickmott.
Yep.
But a lot of these assistants, Jamie Graham seems like a really good fella. He's got good raps, but you're relying on other people inside clubs to tell you that. Scott
Selwood becomes a head coach of an AFL side. I will feel 1,000 years old. So Scooter, good mate of mine, got drafted to the club the year after me, spent my first 6 years of the club with him every day, basically. If I look around next year and he is the head coach of an AFL club, it's a little bit like when Luke Shuey became captain. Someone that's younger than me that I helped sort of develop, and I look and go, what the fuck happened here? Like, how are these blokes now, leaders and yeah. So Scott Selwood's at Collingwood right now. He's been there for 5 years. He's gone through development. He now runs the midfield. So he's highly credentialed premiership midfield coach at Collingwood. So if you look at appointments, they're usually made from good sides with success, right? Adam Kingsley was across St Kilda, was across Richmond. Craig McRae, he's obviously Brisbane success, but where did they get him? Where was he coaching before Collingwood?
That's a good question.
But they come from success, right? So,
generally, that's where you look at the Alistair Clarkson model of those that have come from his
wheelhouse
and from
people
his
talk about
tutelage.
Dean Cox because he's at Sydney and they're successful, right?
Yeah.
Carlton have started to be good, so now Ash Hansen starts getting looked at. Do we know where Craig McRae was pulled from? Hawthorn, Richmond.
And Richmond, yeah.
So thanks for coming.
Which is a bit harsh because if you're a good assistant at, say the Bulldogs and they've won a flag for 10 years, you'd probably not get the same attention.
And there could be a good coach there as well. Skeet, that's us done and dusted. I want to say, final reminder, go and get your tickets, backchatstudios.com.au, Derby preview from 5 p.m, Leadville Hotel. come down and try and buy a ticket on the door. I dare say it'll be sold out, but do your very best. I have invited you down, but you don't really have a great requirement to do anything. Come and have a beer skate.
We'll see.
Maybe you can shout someone, or someone can shout you a beer.
Yeah, I'll have to make sure. Just got to check with the leader of the opposition. You speak of politics, I've got to check with the leader of the opposition about that to see whether there's...
Is that your wife?
Yeah.
Leader of the opposition.
to see if I can get down.
Camilla Harris. No, she's your running
Carmela
partner.
is our running mate at the moment, but no, I'm just trying to work out whether... Yeah, it just depends. A Friday night, so...
So you're Joe Biden and you've just referred to your wife as Donald Trump. Is that what you've just done?
No, I said leader of the opposition. That's an Australian colloquialism. Politics, I know, is not your strong suit.
I'll try to be there. Dig up, stupid.
I'll try to be there, but you know
Get
what?
Down.
I'll see you at the Derby if not.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.